I think from a foreign teacher or an assistant language teacher's perspective on why uh, putting communication into the classroom is failing. Now, the concept has been bounced around for more than 20 years, ever since the mid 80s. The Japanese Ministry of Education has directed that the schools put more communication, spoken English, and more authentic communication into their courses. However, they have not come up with a means for the teachers to implement it or the training necessary. Almost every assistant language teacher commiserates in Japan over the fact that they're not utilized enough, they're not utilized as a proper professional. They're used to parrot isolated words, a human tape recorder, so to speak. And they're not really involved in lesson planning so much. They're basically told what their role is going to be and what they're going to do and when to speak. And one good point, in recent years, the Japanese English teachers have improved their English over the past few years, and their pronunciation in many cases is not much different than my own pronunciation. So, I mean, the idea of where they're just going to turn to me to repeat the words and have the students repeat after me, it's a little outdated. Um, and we have to work toward cultivating communicative culture in the classroom. And I'm going to talk mainly about the junior high school in general. And let's start with the Japanese teachers. They have a grammar curriculum that they need to complete in a one school year. They are under time pressure. They have a textbook to complete, and they seem to be doing just fine with teaching the grammatical elements, the traditional grammatical elements of the course. However, how to put in communicative activities, they're not so they're not very proficient on, and that could be generally said across many school districts all across Japan. The attitude toward learning, especially when teaching communicative tasks, a lot of the Japanese teachers misunderstand. Um, Communicative language teaching in the classroom follows different approaches. You can't take the way you teach the grammar in the textbook and use that if you want the students to use authentic communication. You need other methods. You need other types of approaches, and they're going to need training. And the first thing they might need to do is train themselves, train their attitudes. Uh, there's a few things that they just have to put aside. For example, Japanese English teachers need to develop the tolerance for the ambiguity of native speech. There are many different ways to say the same things in English. That's one point. In a communicative classroom, what's good about strong learners and weak learners is students who don't necessarily do well in the traditional grammar part of the course often do like to speak. And there are ways to bring out some sort of English competence through speaking activities. And the teachers need to consider the needs of the strong learners as well as the weak learners. And it's hard to do in Japan because the teachers have basically been trained to teach to the middle. Japan, across all subjects, is a very egalitarian education system. And it's very rigid, and they're going to, even though they have learned other techniques and they're aware of other techniques, they're likely to do what they think is safe. So they should be unafraid to experiment, and that's going to be very hard to convince them to do. Um, Japanese are supposed to be humble. Well, they might be humble in speech, but I do think that um, they're not necessarily always humble. For example, when I was doing a speech contest, I was doing not a speech contest, but a speaking test that the teachers had created with a list of questions for me to ask each student in 1 minute. Uh, she just criticized me, and yet I'm a veteran of many types of activities like that. I know what to do. Um, Yet she was a little bit overly critical, um, but I think that if one of her Japanese teaching colleagues was sitting in the same seat, she probably would not feel bold enough to critique them. And I'm a bit older than her too. I've actually had more experience teaching than she has, but she's I think that she needed to do a self inventory on what she's doing and how well the students are doing. And I don't think that the teachers do a good reflective self inventory of their methods. And if they would do that, they would probably be better teachers. They got to be more flexible, but they don't. They like the status quo. And lastly, and most importantly, when you're doing communicative activities, the teachers need to promote fluency. Fluency over accuracy. Because like I said before, there are many ways to express the same idea. Focus on the function, focus on the situation, not on the specific words. And when I'm judging people in an oral communication exercise, I don't like to judge them on whether they've misplaced an article or whether they've used the wrong tense. I want to know whether their message got through the medium of English. And I think that that's where we need to be. Now, in the next segment, I am going to be talking about the contents and certain characteristics of um, successful communicative language activities in a traditional junior high school English course.